Were there any changes that they brought about in your everyday
Oh,
life?
in my everyday life, changes for the better.
What happened?
In some other, because this is a communist regime, and for the rich people, they wasn't, or for the people with business, so they had even small business. They small business was not so bad, but bigger business, they was not happy. But the regular working people in this was eye opening, was better than ever before for the majority of the people, because we're not talking about the Germans, we're talking about the Poles. Comparing the Poles to the Russians was like day and night. We start to breathe. In Goyim, they came out Jews, and they call them Judea. Well, came out, they told them, don't say it, because you get 5 years for that, and they get them too. And we wasn't, you said we was depressed, under the Pope, we was depressed. In here, we was breathing, we couldn't be, they had no, they couldn't bring up whatever, even if it was Poles or White Russians or whatever it is, they should be very careful. It was very careful in no attacks, or God forbid, or something like that. No, for the majority of the people, but for the business people, was they made it to take out passports, and if you're a worker, they mark you. If you're a small businessman, they mark you kustar, like. So, but if you're a businessman, they put you Sozialdienst. That's mean paragraph 11. Paragraph 11, you got a problem. Later, I can come. They send them.
What was paragraph 11?
Paragraph 11 was business people, speculant. I mean, they call it. They call it the Russian way. They got their system, the communist system. I'm not against business people. Business people to me was business people. They make the same living like a working people. But the communist part, they call them speculant, the speculators or whatever. They took them to their luck, was to their benefit, because they sent them away to Siberia, and was to the benefit, but better than the Germans. But they was against these people. Or anybody was in any party was like the Bund or something, which was something which they took him later. They took him when they sent them to Siberia or something like that. Not too many, but they sent out some people.
Were there any arrests made by the Russians while they were there?
That's what I'm talking about. Not arrest in jail, but they doesn't mean like they deported, they take them from their house, from their home, they send them. Yeah, just like arrest, sure, but they never came back until after the war.
How long did the Russians remain in Przani?
Till 41.
And what happened then?
What happened then, we had in our city, yeah, well, I was working there.
What were you doing?
I was working in a kitchen in time when would come in. I didn't go to school. No more that time. And then what happened, we had the aerodromes, the Russians, but the Poles didn't have, but the Russians, when they came in, they made two big aeroplanes. And this in a lot of flyers and flying and exercising, because that was the border. For real, was the borderline between Germany and this. But we didn't understand what it is. Pilots, a lot of pilots was in the city, always, all the time they was there, and they was flying and exercising and everything. And then it came like before. What I'm trying to say that in the time for the Russian, we made a better living since I remember than any time And my memory goes back since I was a small child, because in time for the Poles, we was lucky a little bit because we had our grandmother over there, my mother had another, but we got a couple dollars sent from the United States. So, and my mother was very active woman. She was so we hardly made a living. Some people even worse. But comparison, but the Russian, we didn't have no problem. We made a nice living.
Now you mentioned that you were working. But did the Russians allow the schools to remain open once they occupied the town?
No.
What did they do?
Russian schools was job, and the schools was Russian school. No Hebrew school. No. I don't think no Jewish schools.
So their occupation changed the schooling in the community.
Yeah, they put in their system.
Mm-hmm.
They put in a system. Like I said, then we had.
What about the synagogues in the town?
Synagogue was.
And churches? Did they?
Synagogue still was. I don't know. They took away some synagogues. I think they made some, but some of them they still was there.
Under their regime, were you still allowed to gather in houses of prayer and pray?
I don't recall exactly. It's something in my memory that they confiscated some synagogues or something. In schools they made, like the Hebrew schools, they made trade schools on there to teach youngsters trades. And I think they closed up the synagogues or something.
Now, in 41, you said the Russian occupation ended. What happened in 41?
No, we had, like I said, we had camps between Prussian and Lenin, where it was soldiers' camps. And then the youth, before they took to the army, that was the same night. I don't ever recall the dates what I had. You must have some of the dates. And before the Russians took the youngsters, 17 years or 18 years to the army, they took him a couple months for training. And then they took him out. I remember I was a younger, so my brother went out this same night. They went for exercise, like military exercise around the city for a whole night. And near the airplanes flying, and the instructors, the Russian instructors is there and everything, and they dropping like bombs. And this, and the instructor said, that's ours. That's our airplanes. Till they realized it was not our airplanes. That was the Germans, and they bombed. And that's what the exercise was on the territories from the aerodromes, and they bombed almost every airplane. They put in a lightning bombs, and they burned almost all the. When the alarm was, the pilots run to pick up him. Then no planes, maybe one or two, got up, but they shot him down. And right away, and then in the aerodromes, the Russian had warehouses with bombs, big warehouses for the airplanes. In these airplanes, they had in the candles, what they call it, the
wicks?
Wicks. That means they could light up the wicks, and then the whole, maybe miles around the city, everything would level out. And then they realized they lighted up the wicks, but it was lucky. The bombs started to explode. When the bomb, we knew already. So all the city, we went out the houses and left to the field, because if we was laying outside in the bombs, it was blowing up because the wicks. But lucky that from all this, the walls would fall down, I guess. and stopped